This podcast contains themes that are unsuitable for younger listeners and parental guidance is advised.
We've got to keep moving on there, get us! These weapons are shit! Now we've got to rescue Josh. Now come you took my child. It's now 30 years.
I'd like to thank you for listening to this series, and there have been massive differences between Series 1 and Series 2, with the obvious reason of I had to take the series somewhere further. It just felt a bit samey being kept on Earth when you know that there are alien civilizations out there, and they couldn't just be stuck on Earth. So the idea was to do something further, and obviously rescuing Josh was the main mission. There will be a time where they actually do get back to Earth. As you know, you've got Anna, you've got Josh, and you've got the old man all waiting at the safe house. I'll say safe house, it's a safe planet that the Anunnaki don't know anything about, and they will eventually get back to Earth once Henry and Chi-Chi have finished doing their missions. Now, I decided I was going to introduce another character because it would feel like the Love Boat, and I didn't want that. I wanted the chemistry between Chi-Chi and Henry to carry on as it is, quite flirtatious and taking the piss out of each other here and there, as well as obviously being in love with each other. Now, I do feel that those characters work really goddamn well, and it's going to get taken even further. And by having a very awkward kind of alien presence in the middle of it, it'll be a very interesting thing, Series 3. Because I do like the idea of having an awkward alien that just gets in the way, and not knowing too much about Terran humour, shall we say. And obviously the Greys have not seen any of the Terran TV, unlike Chi-Chi who was raised on it, which gave her the sense of adventure to leave her planet and seek out the old man, which then brought her to Henry. Now, I did think it was the right time to go and explore what happened to the children that got stolen from Earth in Series 1, and we've lightly touched upon how they got taken away, some to go onto the Dyson Sphere and some to join the army. And it's about time that I started to introduce those aspects into the story, and just to show how the human spirit has been either crushed or subdued, but still having the hope of a rescue. I do hope that it goes that way, because obviously I haven't written it at this point in time. Now, I do want to include how the child soldiers, who are no longer children, I might add, they're going to be in their late 20s at the very least, between their 20s and their 30s, depending on how old they were when they were taken. And I want to show how they were used to do some real atrocities on behalf of their masters. And the hope is to try and get Henry to meet one of his school friends who's probably going to become a nemesis, and the idea is to try and write that in so they become proper antagonists towards each other, and that will give another element to further series, because I don't want to obviously write the character in to be killed off in that one series. I want this one character who has that big encounter with his friend from school, and then they're just going to become arch nemesis through the brainwashing of the Anunnaki training process. I reckon Series 3 is going to go in a few different directions, because it's going to mainly concentrate on Henry and Chi-Chi, but I do want to have the odd episode with everyone else, with Josh, with the old man and Anna, because I don't want to write them out. But I felt that during making Series 2, a lot of their action and whatnot just got sidelined between Henry and Chi-Chi, because Henry and Chi-Chi, for some reason, I just had more of a chemistry with those characters, and that's why it flowed a lot better with those two, hence why I'm sending them solo for most of this series. And the question is, do I spin it off into Series 3 and Series 3A? And have those running tandemly until they become one series again when they all meet up once more? Or do I just stick with Henry and Chi-Chi? That I don't know just yet, but there's lots of options. There's definitely lots of options to do. Or have Series 4 being the old man, Anna and Josh, to show you the time that they weren't in Series 3. And then do Series 5 of everyone back together. That, yet again, I still don't know how it's going to play out. So that's on the options. Definitely on the options. I'd like to thank you very much for listening to this series, and it does humble me. And it does humble me to know that people keep coming back to listen to the next episode, and I do thank you for it. And I hope that you enjoyed the improvements from the between the first series and the second series, obviously the second series being more technical in the sense of sound effects, which adds even further into the story. Originally I wanted to be able to put all these sound effects into the series 1, which for time constraints I just didn't have the ability to do, and that's because I was working on my YouTube channel, The X Review, and also working a full-time job and doing other podcasts such as A Tribute to Men That Hate Their Jobs. So I basically essentially I ran out of time, and I really needed to get Series 1 up and running to see how it went. And Series 1 was by far the biggest hit I've had so far out of all the work I've ever done. I mean, the X Review does really well on its own, but that's me critiquing other people's work, whereas my own personal work, telling my own stories, is a completely different kettle of fish. Hence why I claim that 30 years since is the most successful bit of work I have, because it feels like it is. My own work starting to be listened to and appreciated by people, and I thank you for listening to it once more. And eventually the plan is to go on to doing my live entertainment podcast, which is in the works, along with another sci-fi based story called Gumshoe, which is set in the near future, and you have a real sleazy piece of work of a private detective called Percival Reginald Vert, who runs the PR Vert detective agency. So I hope that you enjoy that one once I've finally released it, and it should come into it should be near enough ready to go by the time you listen to this this featurette. I'd like to thank you once more for listening to the 30 years since, and I hope that you enjoy Series 3 when it comes out. Thank you for listening. Please come back next week for the next episode. If you've enjoyed this podcast, why not check out our other podcast, A Tribute to Men That Hate Their Jobs, which is a brutal but witty portrayal of working a job you hate. In this podcast, there are themes explored in which happy workers simply wouldn't understand, unless they listen to these cautionary tales from a man that lost his ideal job because of the global pandemic. Be warned that this podcast contains strong and offensive language that some listeners may not want to hear. In addition, this podcast is not recommended for younger audiences. All our podcasts are available on YouTube. Just search for the musterxmedia podcast channel. In addition, you can also find our podcasts on Amazon Music, Red Circle Podcasts, Stitcher and Spotify. We also have another YouTube channel called The X Review. This is a review and reaction channel. Not only is it on YouTube, but it is also on Brand YouTube, BitChute and Rumble. You can also find us on Facebook, Gab, Twitter and Parler. All the links are in the description below.